So yeah, I'm known as Julia Pegahmagabow in my everyday walking around life, and I'm going to introduce myself in a Ojibwamoan, the best way that I can. So, Wewena Bojo, Jacadokwe Indigo, Dikudo Dem Gainin, Wasayakasing Donjaba, Megwa Dikmikshing Dadaben Dogwis. Hmm. Midday Quay and Dow, Swendam, Somadewayan. Um, I think that's about it. Yeah. Um, so I carry Nishnawbe name, which kind of translates to clear sky woman, and I'm from the Caribou clan. And I grew up, was born and raised in the community of Wasayakusing, in Georgian Bay. So Perry Sound is in the territory of my ancestors. But now I live and I belong to the community of Adikmikshing. And so we're from, so I when I started, getting ready for post-secondary education, I came to Swakamuck and I met my Weedame Magan, my husband, Chuck, and he's here from Atikmikshing. Um, so yeah, we raised our family here, and we have 4 children. We have three adult children, and we have a 10-year-old. So it's big gap there. Um, but and everybody's at home. They came home before the pandemic. Began just adjusting to life after their post-secondary studies and getting ready to shift gears and embark. And then pandemic, so they're working from home, which is nice. It's really nice to have everybody close together and knowing that everybody's um, relatively safe and well during this time of slowing down and yeah, just moving slowly in creation and with a lot of care. So I'm a little nervous. I will admit this. um, it's one thing to do, to make moccasins and to be in a workshop. It's a little more. Like a visit. So I would really like to make this like a visit. I don't want to feel like I'm like presenting or lecturing, but I just, happy to share, be asked to share what I know about moccasins. So I'm going to talk today about, I'm going to start by talking about moccasins through the lifespan. And I'm going to talk about that also in the context of the Anishinaabe life path and understanding of the 7 stages of life. And so yeah, that's where I'm gonna start a bit, and also talk about, not that I know, I'm not I don't have a medical background, um, but I'm gonna talk a little bit about how our feet develop, in our infancy, and why moccasins are so important, when our children are infants and they're growing and learning to walk. So I'm going to start there. Um, Actually, before I get there, I just want to talk. I have some notes here. I just want to just talk. When we talk about the life path, sometimes you may have heard it explained as the 4 hills of life, or if you think in terms of a medicine wheel construct, um, that movement around the circle, beginning in the east and moving around to the directions of the south and the west and the north. Sometimes life is described that way. So, but in Anishinaabe understanding and relating to life, we know that life flows in the east, flows from the east, and moves through creation to the west, to the western doorway of our lives. So Um, so in the 7 stages, um, I don't know all the names in Anishinaabe, um, but you may be familiar with some of these terms. Our early life is called the good life sometimes. So our infancy and childhood, and then later childhood and adolescence, we talk about that as the fast life. And as we get into young adulthood, um, that's known as the wondering and wandering life. And after that, we move into the truth life, um, then into planning and planting, and then doing. And then that final stage of life is where we become the teacher. It's our teaching life, and we pass on the wisdom that we have come to know throughout our lifetime. So that's those are the stages that I'm going to be talking about a bit. So I wanted to um, start with the good life in infancy and childhood. And so when we think about our baby's feet, they're very, very soft, and they're padded. They're kind of chubby, and you probably, when you were playing with your babies or nieces or nephews or grandbabies, we kiss their feet. You know, they're really they're really kind of chubby on the bottom of the foot, on the sole, and and so they stay like that. They stay like that until about 2 years of age. They're padded like that, and they're really important for sensory development because it helps our children to communicate with their environment, right? They and us, we were all babies. We learned to relate to our environment and understand our environment by the touch of our feet. So whether that was our parents' hands, and as we grew and we were able to begin to stand. We did a lot of sensory learning with our feet. So um, I got a lot of this information from a shoe website, actually. Too, I can share that blog a little later. Maybe we'll take a break, but um, I can share that link. I think I can, Jessica? Yeah, I'll be able to share that. And so, yeah, walking around, what's recommended, in those first years of life, or walking around in socks or soft shoes that helps children to develop the musculature in their feet. So to strengthen the muscles. And if we put shoes on too early, um, in some cases, that it can really affect how the metatarsals develop in our feet. So the bones that stretch out or there between our toes and our the top of our foot, the metatarsals, like I guess we have metatarsals here in our hands as well, so it helps them to form when we're walking in soft shoes. And so if we put hard shoes on too quickly, put them on our children too quickly, then they sometimes will have arches in them, and they're really molded and formed inside the foot. So it can affect how our feet develop and how our children's feet develop. So soft shoes makes me go, yay, because there is a place for our moccasins. So I just wanted to show you here. These are I have a bag here of my children's moccasins. The moccasins that I made them while I was pregnant and waiting for them. In some cases, I have a few. So this little style here, this kind of a plain style of moccasins from the the Midwest style, and you can tell also by the beadwork, but just also by the way the sole is sewn onto the top of the moccasin here. And so these are my daughter Sage's moccasins, my second born. And so these are the moccasins that she wore home from the hospital. And we brought her home in these little moccasins. And that was always something that was so important to me, as a young person. I was really impressed before I became pregnant. I was so impressed that I could see my older cousins, and I could see some of my aunties, and they made sure that they did that. They made sure that they took time to make moccasins so they could bring their babies home in their moccasins. These are not my oldest son's first pair of moccasins, but they were a gift, and they're a wraparound kind of a moccasin here. And so they got some ties, and these would go around his ankle and wrap up. We'd wrap them around his ankle and tie those up. And then you can see here too, there's some little holes on the sole of these moccasins, on the soles. So these were a gift. These were ones that I made. I also, you can notice the little holes there too on the soles on the moccasins. And one of the things that I also came to understand as a young person was that we put those holes in the moccasin. It's like we're wearing them out. We're wearing them out for the baby. We put that in the moccasin first, and it's like a well wish. It's like a wish that they, throughout their lifetime, are that they're going to wear out many, many moccasins throughout their lifetime. And so they eventually will make the holes in the soles of their moccasins. But for the first pair, we're doing that for them to wish them a long life. So, so that's the pair there. Here's another pair. These were my youngest son's moccasins, and as pretty as beads are, the worry sometimes is that they get their toes into their mouth and they chew on those beads. So that's what my little guy did here with these pair. So he didn't eat a lot of them. It hopefully fell out of his mouth, but he's 10, so I think he did okay. So so that first pair of moccasins is that wish for a long life, and then we make moccasins throughout different important parts of life throughout the term. Like long ago our ancestors would have just wore them, right? And I think my great grandfather also wore, he took moccasins with him when he went to war, when he was in the First World War, and they helped him to avoid problems like trench foot, because he had something that he could wear and dry his, get out of the boots and be able to dry his feet. So moccasins were really important. I wanted to also mention, and I don't have any Cree ancestry, but I do have Cree friends, and maybe some of you who are tuning in today. Oh, I just see a note here. I found some beads in my son's poo. I think it's poo. I can only make out P-O, but so yeah, the fun times in parenting with beads, parenting our children and eating beads. But yeah, I have another story about that, and if we get to it at the end of this, I'll share that about kids and beads. And okay, so Was going back to, I was talking about our Cree relatives. They have a really beautiful ceremony, and they call it the walking out ceremony. And so I don't know a lot about it, and we have never done this in our family. But what I understand is that for the first year, at least a year, it may go a little longer depending on the time of year that that the children are born. Um, but they don't. The children don't walk out on the earth um, until they're able to walk themselves. And so this the walking out ceremony um, is something that is done when they're able to walk. And I may be wrong here, but I believe that happens in the springtime. Um, and so they walk out of their home or their teepee or lodge, and they carry the tools that they're going to need throughout their through their lives. So it might be a little wooden knife, or it might be some thread and some little needles, maybe something that's going to help them through their life. Um, but they don't walk outdoors on the ground until that ceremony happens. Um, and so, I do know of some Anishinaabe people who have done that ceremony with their children. And I don't know though if that was also widely practiced in Anishinaabe communities. As we reach back and connect to our traditions, to the things that our ancestors did. Maybe we did a version of that, but it's not as common today in Anishinaabe communities if it was done. So, but I really love that celebration of that early stage of life. Right, they're moving from infancy and moving into childhood. So there's just another thing that I wanted to share with you about this stage of life, and about a project that you may have heard of um, by there's a an Anishinaabe from New Credit. Her name is Nancy Rowe, and I think with a few other collaborators, they created a project called So They Can Go Home. And what they did was people would come together and they would make moccasins, and they would gift them to children who had been who were in care, babies who were in care or were going to be um, apprehended, or but also feeling again that it was important for babies to have something, and wear something home from the hospital, especially if they weren't going to be going home with their families. So I think that's another, that's so important, and it really shows us how community community can still support our children, um, and hopefully those contributed to some healing, and for babies to be able to go home to their families. So um, but that just to know that you weren't forgotten, right, and that your community is still wanting you to know where you're from, and know who you are, to help you know who you are. So yeah, I'll share a link to that also later in the presentation if you want to learn more about that project. I'm not sure if it's very active anymore, but going back about 4 or 5 years, it was a really active movement, and a way to support families and children. So I'm going to move now and just talk a little bit about the fast life, and so late childhood and adolescence. And when we're moving into this stage of life. And some of the things on a spiritual nature, what was happening with our children is that um, they were beginning or preparing to engage in puberty fasting and or visioning, and there were other important youth ceremonies at this time of their lives. And so, um, when they would be, finish their fasting, they would be they would be um, dressed in new clothing, and that included moccasins, to begin walking and moving in a new stage of life in moccasins was really a blessing, and a way to blanket our children and our young people with love. So, when I was doing my fasting, it was about 11 or 12, and when I when I finished my fasting, that is something my parents did, and is to make new clothing for me and make moccasins. And actually, during it was a year for me. When we do the berry fast, it's a year of fasting, and it's a year of learning to make. And that's actually the time where I began to sit down with my mother and begin to learn how to make things, begin to learn how to work with leather and begin to work with beads. So I spent a lot of time in that year with my mother and my aunties, and learning some patience, and learning the skills, that I would um, come to use in my in my life, and come to love, because I really do love making moccasins. I do love beadwork. We're sitting here today behind me. This is my crafting, creating space. So I feel a lot of peace, and yeah, this is where the magic happens. um, so, um, so yeah, so here I just wanted to share one of the things too. One of the things that my children did and we did in our ceremonies is we have a ceremony for young people, and young people, um, still relatively connected, and they bring a lot of medicine. They bring a lot of healing to the people, and so one of the ways that we do in our lodge and in our ceremonies, we have a ceremony called the Buffalo Dance, and it's for the young people, and they work with the buffalo spirit to bring medicine, to bring food, to spiritual food, to nurture and nourish the people. And so each of my four older children have participated and completed this ceremony. It was a 4-year commitment for them. And I also, when I was a young person, I'd finished my puberty fasting. I also took part in this ceremony, and so it was really nice for my children, another generation, to carry this forward. And so for that ceremony, there's um, special clothing that they wear and they dance in, and moccasins are a special part of that ceremony as well. And they only wear these clothing and these moccasins while they're participating, while they're actively engaged in this ceremony, and so they're not everyday wear. So I just wanted to show, these are, with my children's permission, these are the moccasins that I made for my daughters. So this is um, a moccasin, and they're a bit old. It's been almost 15 years, well, maybe not, a little over 10 years anyways, that they were dancers. And so this is daughter Sage's moccasins. We have some floral designs here, but again, this is a plains style of moccasin, and some of the beadwork starting to come off there, but yeah, can see there's some repairs I could do to brighten them up a little bit. And so here's the other side. Yeah. And so that was my daughter Sage, and then these are my daughter Emma's. So, and so you can see the buffalo. There's 4 different colors of buffalo there. You can see the dark brown. I used black beads, and then this little golden colored buffalo, and it just those represented the 4-year commitment that Emma was making. And again, over here we have some florals and then some strawberries beaded on the side. And so to start that ceremony, before they would start to dance, and what was really significant and symbolic is that the parents would carry the moccasins into the lodge, and it was the parents who would put the moccasins on their teen children's feet, right? And tie them up, like we did when they were babies, but we're doing it again. And I think as a parent, I felt like it was so affirming that that I'm letting you know I'm still committed to you. You're growing up, you're going away, but I'm still committed to you, and I still love and support you so much. So so that felt, it feels so good to put those moccasins on their feet. My son's moccasins are packed away, but we didn't make new moccasins for my son. We actually he inherited my grandfather's moccasins, so his great grandfather. And so I asked if they absolutely had to be new moccasins, and they said no, they don't have to be brand new. And that connection of that gift, that transmission of a gift from a great grandparent who's recently passed away down to that great grandchild, as long as that's all that he used them for, was that ceremony. And so we, they didn't have to be new ones, but they had to be only used for that purpose in that time. So yeah, so that's what we did for them in their teen years, in their really like that time of fast development. Okay, I gotta take a little drink of water here, and I even forget, how long are we on today, Jessica? Are we on till 2:00? Yeah.
Yeah, we're on till 2:00.
Okay, I'm gonna take a drink, but are there any questions in the chat?
Sigrid asks if those, I think you might have answered this in your last little bit here, but whether those moccasins are used only for the buffalo ceremony or also in future ceremonies.
Yeah, they're used. They in that 4-year commitment, they were used only for the ceremony. But now that they're done that commitment, they wear them for other ceremonies. And they have other moccasins that they wear at ceremonies as well. So they just kind of interchange. As kind of graduates of that ceremony, they also continue to participate, not as actively as they did when they were in that 4-year commitment, but they still dance with the current buffalo dancers from at the opportunities as they arise. So yeah.
And then we have a cousin, I believe, of Nancy Groves, Wendy here, saying she's Nancy's cousin. And Janice said that she likes the style of moccasins with wraps for babies, as they would kick them off as they wiggle and kick. And she lost a few with the first one.
Yeah, yeah, they are. It is tough to keep moccasins on baby feet. um, I have one muckluck that my all the kids wore, but when we got to the baby, the 10-year-old, I lost one muckluck somewhere. Somewhere around Sudbury. I lost one muckluck. And so I managed to keep one, but those were passed to my brother from an auntie from Wikwemikong, a ceremony auntie, and so they're passed to my brother, and her son wore them, and then passed to my son from my mother, and my oldest son, and yeah, so they made it their way down, and yeah, then we after, oh gosh, my brother is like mid, maybe 35 now, so after 30 or 25 years. Just doing the math quickly. 25 years in our family, we lost one. I So yeah, it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking when you lose one of them. Okay. Um yeah, and then just that stage of life too, as we move next to like wondering and wandering, right? You think about what you're doing in that time, um and when you're in that movement in that stage of life, and I'm thinking like late teens, early 20s, kind of to mid 20s ish. um and these are just approximate. There's no hard and fast rule about how long these stages last. But if you think about what you were doing, you were maybe challenging, what you had learned up to that point in your life, right? And kind of maybe figuring out or learning about other people's ways, and kind of checking that back with the information that you'd already received to that point in your life. Sometimes we travel far. Sometimes we wonder for a lot, and really think about what we've come to know or what we're coming to know. And so, you know, again, still in these times, um, we're working to connect to our purpose, right? And so, again, still and spiritually seeking that. And so, again, through fasting, you may be wearing another pair of new moccasins as you're doing this, um, in this part of your life. And so, for those of you, aunties, uncles, parents, grandparents, if you know some young people, maybe you see them kind of struggle with this part of their life, but maybe a pair of moccasins would be, appropriate gift for this time, just to help with that, with the questions that they have in this stage of their life. So, and to help them connect, to their spirit and to spiritual understanding, as well as to the purpose, the thing they were sent here to do, by a creator. And so, and some of that, not all of us got to do it, but it's starting to come back. It's something we're starting to pick up and do again. But when we did that puberty fasting, that's where we began. That was, um, where we began to connect. And now at this stage, we're trying to figure it out. And then we move into a truth life, and a little bit older adults, late 20s, where we again come to understand, and still try again reaching and making spiritual connections. Um, so, um, the next stage of life we call planning and planting, and again, deeper into our adulthood, and again still continuing to relate to our purpose, but also probably the time where we find ourselves meeting. Historically that might have been arranged for us, but we make our way, find our way to our Moccasin, the one, the one that we walk with. And so, again, when I got married, my husband and I both wore new moccasins in our ceremony, and so I was kind of busy sewing a lot of things. I was able to sew my own moccasins, but my dad gifted my husband with his moccasins, the ones that he wore, and he kept those for a long time, and they really lasted for a long time, um, and we took them apart so that we could figure out how to remake them. So when the stitching began to fall apart a few years ago, we took them apart. So we've yet to put those ones back together. I had to make do with other pairs. It's also the time, where we also began to become parents, and we call our parents Gitsamuk. And as we become Gitsamuk, then we're supporting our own children, our Nijansuk, to connect to spirit, and we begin to do these things. So that's, in my planning and planting life, maybe a little bit earlier. I was kind of young when I became a parent. I was like 21 when our first son was born, and so but that's where we're that's kind of things that we're doing for our children to make sure that we give them the best life that we possibly can. And then into our doing life, we're doing some more in our act of, acting on our purpose, maybe with some more intention. And our children have grown a little bit more and are a little bit more. I don't want to say independent; it's not quite the right word, but they are not so reliant on us for everything when they're really little. So in our doing life, we have some time, to do more, I guess. For me, part of me, I kind of think of myself as being kind of in this doing life as well. And one of the things I'm doing is seeking a deeper spiritual connection right now, and so yeah, my youngest son is a little bit older, and he can be supported by other people in our family, so that I do have a little bit of time to actively do some more connecting and gaining deeper understanding about life and about spirit. So and then later, the last stage actually is when we become the teachers. Some people call it the teaching life. When we become, I guess we sometimes refer to our elders as Getsajig. They're our wisdom keepers, and some teachers we refer to as our Chi'aya, right? They're very, very special knowledge keepers, and so it's nice to be able to make moccasins for our Chi'aya, for our wisdom keepers, and especially as we're seeking knowledge and spending time with them. It's nice to be able to do that for them, for everything that they do for us and give to us. After, I just want to talk a little bit. So that's through those 7 stages. I wanted to talk about moccasins too when our loved ones leave, right? When our loved ones pass away, is another time where moccasins are really important as they prepare. Through our funeral ceremonies, we're preparing our loved one for their spirit journey or their walk, and transition from this physical world Manitoba King. And so so we also make moccasins at that time, or you know, we purchase some, but we want to send our loved ones off in such a good and beautiful way, and placing moccasins on their feet is um, part of that sending off as well. We send them with other things too. We send them with some food and materials that they're going to need for that journey, and then knowing that when they get back to the place of our ancestors, and with their ancestors, that their ancestors are also preparing to celebrate and preparing to welcome them and dress them in new clothes as well. But um, that time of transition is one of the last opportunities we have to make those moccasins for our loved ones. Okay, so we've got about 15 minutes left, maybe 14. I'm gonna have another drink here. I've been moving kind of fast. Are there any kind of questions or comments?
I do have a question here for you, Julia, and it is from Janelle. Is there any meaning in the puckers of the moccasins?
Any meaning in the puckers? Yeah. I am not completely sure. I do know, like, puckers. A lot of nations pucker. So what I've shown, like the moccasin styles I have shown you a lot of are of a plain style, and because I used to powwow a lot, and I don't powwow so much, especially since the pandemic. I don't powwow as much these days, but I also have started to work more on a pucker style of moccasin. So these are my youngest, a mix moccasins here, and so this is like a woodland. Sometimes it looks a lot to like a Cree style. They're very similar in in their puckers, and so you can tell more, like I'm thinking more like telling the difference in the style of a pucker. You can tell the nation over in the East Coast, that there's more material, like more leather up in the toe area, and so the puckers are like really close together when you look at those from, say, like Labrador or Newfoundland. Yeah, I can't. I'm probably our Mi'kmaq relatives as well. Very similar. There's more material, so there's more puckers, and they're smaller and very very close together, and so it looks like almost looks like you took like a drawstring and gathered it, and sewed it on, and then and so yeah, so these a little bit more of an Anishinaabe or Cree style of a pucker, and then, oh my gosh, I did not pull out. I did not pull out another pair. And then, there is a style of moccasin. I'm just going to share my screen here and pull up a picture. That is not. Okay, I'm just going to open it up on my desktop. Sorry about this. Okay. So I'm going to show you a split toe style of moccasins, and these ones don't have as many puckers. I made one. I've made one pair of split toe moccasins, and they haven't. I had more puckers than these ones here. But can you see my screenshot here?
Yeah.
Uh, I'll just make this enlarge this a little bit. So if you can see that, Jessica? Okay,
Yes,
so everybody should be able to see this. Yeah. So the split toe talks, you can see this seam where I'm moving my cursor here at the toe of the moccasin. So there's looks like a child's pair and then an infant pair. And so that there's a seam. These ones have a welt. They sometimes don't have a welt, between these two sides. And but yeah, I'm not sure if I ever really even asked about a pucker, um, and what they mean specifically. But I just imagined that they just helped to like move through the terrain of where you were, um, and uh, and the gathering of the material. Just it's not, well, leather's very form, stretches and moves with your foot anyway. um, but it but yeah, I have not heard a specific meaning for pucker. It just to kind of just my using my own thinking is that the style that we have is is related to the place that we are, and how we need to move, and how we need our footwear to be able to support us, in the terrain and in the environment that we live. Um, so, um, yeah, I'm just going to stop sharing this for now. Um, was that, oh, somebody, okay, so Sigrid, I'm just pulling up this question here. Sigrid went to the Beata Shoe Museum for a show of footwear. Um, I'm not sure if they would share their collection. I remember some footwear was made with fish skin. Mm-hmm. Um, and um, yeah, fish skin is very water resistant, and really, it's really it's something that people are learning how to work with again. Um, I'm actually myself getting ready to learn a little bit more about fish skin tanning. So I don't know. Um, I haven't asked yet, and it'll just be small. I'll just be learning to work with one side of the skin, I think, or maybe two, but just a small piece about the process of fish skin tanning. So I'm looking forward to that. It's gonna, I think at the beginning of March I get to do that. Okay.
Esther saying the old word Ojibwe translates to puckered. Not sure of other tribes as I am Ojibwe.
Mm-hmm.
And Wendy says they had dress ones and everyday ones. Also, they told other bands who we were and where we came from.
Yeah, absolutely. So definitely in this style, I am borrowing from our Plains relatives. Again, these are again the wraparounds. Many nations, had a version of wraparounds. But yeah, you could definitely tell who is from where. And these were a gift. These are Cree, made by Cree with home tan hide. And so, but yeah, the beadwork, the style of the beadwork, people are really starting to really re-embrace or embrace, um, and the style of their nation, and that's really a nice, it's a beautiful way to connect back to our ancestors, and um, and represent, represent who you are, and by making that connection. So These, like the plain style with the sole this way, that it helped to like when they were dancing, and the style of dancing they were doing, they could slide a little easier, and because it tied here, um, because it ties, easier to stay on their foot. It took me a little while to master, being able to keep, this more Ojibwe pucker style moccasin on my foot and be able to dance. So it took a little while to master that. Um, but yeah, so um, I don't know.
Gosh, Julia, there's lots of chatter here in the chat box, and maybe I'll read some things out.
Okay.
I'll have to zip back here a little bit. People have been sharing. So one just quick thing, someone, Katie asks if you could just repeat the titles of the 7 stages. He's trying to list them.
All right. Okay. So yeah, we begin with the good life, the fast life, wondering and wandering, truth life, planning or planting, doing, and teaching.
Emma says, I'm Apache, and wonders if you have made any mocks from that style.
I have not. I don't think I don't think I have made Apache style moccasins. I'm just trying to think about like what the Southwest, because Apache would be Southwest, right? Southwest US, maybe around, I'm not even sure what state. Forgive me. I have not made any that style, but when I think of the Southwest, what I also think, I do have some relatives who are from the Navajo Nation, and then their neighbors, the Hopi. When I think of some of the styles that come from that area, they also had like a thick kind of a wrap that went up their leg, and I often wondered. I never knew anyone to ask, but I thought what made sense to me is that I wonder if they wear that thick wrap around their legs because of where they are and where they walk, and the snakes, and the rattlesnakes. And then I was trying to think, I wonder what if we had anything, what we would have had for our area, where I grew up. There was a lot of rattlesnakes, although I never saw a rattlesnake outside of captivity. So I either learned how to avoid them, or they avoided me, or I just never got close enough for that to be warned. But so yeah, I wonder about that, and I think that's where, for us, these wrappings would, if we had wrappings that went up above our calf, and I had pairs of those when I was a youngster. They, something like that, or thicker, or, depending on where you knew you were going to walk, there was wrappings to protect our legs from thorns or bites or whatever. So.
Yeah. And Marlene shares that Métis style moccasins are a boat style, but she's only ever been taught by her mom, and the ones they make are not so pointy. They're more of a Cree style. Yeah. And Shane asks if you have any available patterns. And I know someone else has asked a bit later if you have a website or any way that they can see more of your work.
Oh, I don't have a website. I'm guessing looking at getting one started with my daughters, who are also artists, moccasin artists and digital artists. So I am looking at doing that. I think, I don't know, the name I'm playing with, because we're House of Hoof Clan, so we'll be called the House of Hooves. It sounds like a really couture kind of a house. Couture moccasin house. So But yeah, so I don't have anything other than, yeah, I don't have anything yet. I haven't gotten that brave, I guess.
We'll keep our eyes out.
Yeah.
I'm aware we're just hitting 2 o'clock here, so I'll just read
Yeah.
through a couple of the last comments because some people have shared some nice thoughts here. Betty Lane says that the puckering also made it easier to change the vamps, making it easier to interchange the vamps when needed.
Yeah, absolutely. Like puckering here. So yeah, like if you got a hole here, I don't, some people will put a sole, they'll sew a sole on. I don't. If I need to, like if I wear something out on a toe or the heel, are typically two places that I wear out my moccasin, I can then just, take off the outer sole, all of this, and then sew the vamp into a new moccasin. And that's, similar with these. I'm not, I can repair the beadwork up here, but if I were to wear a hole here or anywhere, I could just unstitch all of the all around the edge here of the sole and sew a new sole in. So it's really versatile. You don't have to and it can last you, like the beadwork, the vamp will last you generations, because you're just replacing, the worn out parts. And then, when I wear something, I try to turn it into something else. Or if I can't turn it into something else, like it might become a backing for something. um or I return it to the earth, depending on how that was done. The chemically treated leather that I might have used, you know I might not do that so much. But if I have worn out pieces of a home tan hide, which will, like, be, I think, safe for our animal relatives to gather and use, I'll put those out. But